When the past stays quiet, a journey through memory, loss, and quiet rebuilding beneath the blooming magnolia tree that waited for spring to finally arrive. Spring arrived later than expected. The air still held the bite of winter in the early mornings, and the sky remained pale and undecided for most of the day. The magnolia tree outside my mother's house bloomed slowly, each petal unfolding as if unsure whether it was safe. I watched it from the kitchen window each morning with a cup of tea that always went cold before I could finish it. Coming back wasn't something I planned. I left this house with no intention of ever returning, but time has a way of circling back. My mother had passed away a few weeks before, and the house was left to me, still filled with her things, her habits, and her silences. I walked through the rooms like a visitor. Nothing had moved in years. Even the slight dent in the living room wall from when I fell off the couch as a child was still there, as though the house remembered everything I tried to forget. It had been 7 years since I left. The silence between then and now had become something I lived with. After what happened, I told myself I didn't need closure. But it turns out you can't walk away from something just because you don't want to carry it anymore. It follows in quiet ways through scent, through memory, through the way an old floorboard creaks beneath your step. I was married when I left. We had a small apartment in the city, a predictable life. It wasn't dramatic or passionate, but it felt real. We woke up at the same time, shared meals, and planned weekends. I thought that was enough. I thought love looked like routine, like comfort. He was steady and thoughtful. I didn't ask for more. She was always different. My cousin, though we grew up like sisters. She lived with us for a few years during her teens when her own family fell apart. She filled every space she entered, always loud, always sure of what she wanted. I admired that about her once. She could light up a room and make people look. I didn't mind staying quiet beside her. I thought she needed it more. I didn't notice it at first. The way he looked at her, the way she stayed a little longer after dinner. It felt innocent, familiar. But then there were things that didn't add up. Conversations that ended when I walked into a room, changes in his schedule, and her avoiding eye contact. It wasn't one big moment. It was small things piling up until they couldn't be ignored. Eventually, I found the proof I didn't want. It was careless, really. A receipt tucked into his coat pocket, 2 drinks at a bar neither of us had been to, a charger she left plugged into the outlet in our bedroom. I stood there holding it, not angry, not shocked, just tired. That kind of betrayal doesn't come with fireworks. It lands quietly, the way snow falls in the night. You wake up, and everything is different, even though the world looks the same. I didn't say anything. I packed a bag and left before either of them came home. I never went back. I spent the first few months in a friend's spare room, trying to piece together a version of myself that didn't feel like a mistake. I avoided calls. I changed my number. I got a job at a bookstore. Something simple that didn't require much talking. People thought I was handling it well, but most days I just went through the motions. Now, standing in this house again, I realize how much I've avoided sitting with the past. My mother's death forced something open. I found her old letters in a drawer by the bed, ones she never mailed. Some were addressed to people I didn't know. One of them was for him, my father, who left before I was old enough to remember. She never talked about him. I assumed she resented him, but the letter said otherwise. She wrote that she let him go because she thought it was better for me, that she chose someone more stable, someone who could offer a quieter life. I don't know if that man ever cared for me as a daughter. He didn't stay long enough to find out. I always believed people left because they wanted something more. Now I think maybe they left because they didn't know how to stay. I've been staying in the house for a few weeks now. The air smells like dust and pine and something faintly sweet that I can't place. I open the windows during the day and listen to the birds come back. The lake nearby is still. I walk the same path I used to take as a child, past the stone wall and the row of birch trees. There's comfort in repetition, even if the memories tied to it are unclear. There's been no contact from them. I sometimes wonder what they told people, whether they stayed together or if it all unraveled once I left. I imagine they tried to justify it. Maybe they told themselves I didn't really love him, or that they didn't mean for it to happen. I used to think knowing would help. Now I think it would only change the shape of the hurt, not remove it. Grief is a quiet thing. It shows up in ordinary moments, pouring tea into a chipped mug, folding a sweater that still smells like the past, sitting in a chair and realizing you don't need to wait for someone to fill the silence. I've learned to let it be. I don't try to fix it anymore. I keep the house clean. I tend to the small garden in the back. My mother never managed to keep anything alive there, but the soil is still good. I planted herbs a few days ago. Basil, mint, rosemary, nothing dramatic. Just enough to make the space feel used again. I think she would have liked that. Some days I wonder what I expected from returning. Maybe I thought the past would be easier to look at from a distance, like something under glass. But it's not distant. It seeps into everything. The shape of a shadow in the hallway, the creak of the kitchen cabinet, the faint scent of her perfume still trapped in old scarves. Memory doesn't need an invitation. It arrives, unannounced, with the quiet confidence of something that knows it belongs. I started waking up earlier than I used to. The sky turns soft just before the sun rises, and I've come to like that moment when the world is still undecided, when everything feels suspended. I sit by the window with tea. I no longer let it go cold. The magnolia tree became a kind of clock, measuring time not by minutes but by bloom. It reminded me that life moves even when we feel stuck. I take long walks by the lake. There's an old bench there, worn by weather and time. I sit and watch the surface ripple gently with the wind. Ducks pass in pairs. Children's laughter echoes faintly from the nearby houses. These sounds feel far away, not intrusive, but like a melody from another room. I no longer reach for answers on those walks. I've stopped asking why people betray, why they leave, or what could have been done differently. That kind of reflection always ends in circles. There's a drawer in the house I hadn't opened until yesterday. It was tucked in the corner of my mother's room, beneath a pile of old newspapers. Inside were photographs of her, some of me, and some of both of us. Most were faded, curled at the corners. One showed her holding me as a baby, her smile wide, eyes bright in a way I had never seen in person. I studied that photograph for a long time, not out of grief, but curiosity. I wondered what she had hoped for us back then. If she imagined this house would one day be a place I'd return to alone. Later, I found a box of her recipes, handwritten on yellowed cards, smudged in places with flour or oil. I remembered how she used to hum while cooking. Not a tune, just a sound, low and content. I made one of the recipes that evening, something simple and warm. As I ate, I didn't feel nostalgia so much as a sense of steadiness, as if the act of cooking something she once loved anchored me in a way words couldn't. The garden began to take shape slowly. Sprouts pushed through soil, the mint spread fast. The rosemary was slower, more reserved. I liked checking on them each morning, liked the way dirt settled under my nails, the way effort translated into something visible. The work was small and repetitive, but it gave shape to the days. I no longer needed a plan. The present was enough. I came across an old journal of mine in the attic. The handwriting was clumsy, the thoughts scattered. But I saw a girl trying to understand the world, trying to find her place within it. She wanted to be seen, but didn't know how to ask. I closed the journal gently, not in shame, but with quiet recognition. That girl wasn't so different from who I am now, just more afraid. Sometimes I imagined running into them by accident, at a store maybe, or on a train. I wondered what I would feel. Surprise? Anger? Nothing? But the thought passed as quickly as it came. That chapter no longer asked to be read aloud. Some endings are better left unspoken, better understood through the silence they leave behind. The house no longer felt foreign. The walls didn't seem to watch me anymore. I started moving things, rearranged the furniture, gave away what I didn't need. I kept a few of her things: a ceramic dish she used to keep on the windowsill, a scarf that still held her scent, and a framed sketch of the lake she once made. These weren't tokens of mourning. They were quiet bridges between past and present. Writing became a habit again, not in journals but on scraps of paper, backs of receipts, and margins of books. I wrote without structure, thoughts, impressions, moments. I didn't reread them. It wasn't about remembering, it was about release, about giving form to what had gone unsaid for too long. The season shifted gently. The sky found its color again. Mornings warmed. The magnolia tree reached its peak bloom and then began to shed. Petals littered the grass like confetti after an unseen celebration. I watched as the wind took them one by one. There was nothing mournful in the way they felt, just a quiet acceptance that their time had passed. Grief, I learned, does not demand resolution. It asks only to be acknowledged. It changes its shape over time. What once felt like weight now felt like depth. I didn't carry the past anymore as a burden, but as part of the terrain I walked. It didn't hold me back. It simply walked beside me. There was no moment of transformation, no grand realization. Only small changes, a deeper breath, a steadier hand, a softer gaze toward the future. The pain never left entirely, but it no longer shaped the outline of my days. One morning, I noticed the magnolia tree had fully bloomed. It happened overnight, quietly. The petals were soft and white with pink edges, some already falling onto the damp earth. I stood outside and looked up at it for a while. The wind moved through the branches, and a few petals drifted down, landing on my sleeves. They didn't feel heavy anymore,